how you deal with a complaint, even if it's not, it might not even be a full complaint, but an issue, a small niggle, or like anything, like how you deal with that can provide more loyalty than a perfect service. Someone can come in and have a perfect service, flawless, all the drinks come in perfect time, the menu chat was perfect, like they had a great time, they had a nice night, they go and they might tell a couple of people the next day, oh, it's pretty good in speaking code or whatever. Like if they come and they complain about a drink and you absolutely smash the resolution, they will come back 100 times, versus the time that was perfect. And actually, what's the difference? The difference is there was a problem, but you solved it really well because you cared. And that can be way more powerful than having flawless service.
Yeah. Well, I have some views on this. I have some big views on this. And I think over the last couple of days, I think I've had some really interesting conversations with some local bartenders about this as well, because it's all about conditioning in hospitality, right? And I think for the most part in hospitality, you're conditioned to yes sir, no sir, guest is always right. And I'm even at times be an apologist, right? Listen, you sent out the perfect version of the drink, but the person doesn't like it and you apologize. It's like, not really got anything to apologize for unless maybe, whatever, if there's a mistake along the way, or if you insisted, you drink gin and tonic,
pushed them into
but I'm going to get you a distilled green walnut and Giraud mushroom drink, right? Then it's like, okay, no, man, my bad. Maybe I recommended the wrong drink for you. But I think we're conditioned to be like, apologists. But I think we, as Speaking Code, we kind of approach things as a creator. I take a lot of values from my music background and apply it to where we are now and in hospitality. And when you made music, you didn't necessarily think about the person afterwards when you were making the music. You just made the music and it was a passion thing, and it felt right. And look, we knew we were good at what we did. And then we presented it to people and people came, and you focused on the ones that enjoy what you do. Not to say the ones who didn't enjoy it didn't matter necessarily, but it's like, okay, well, we have a fan base. Let's speak about fan base. And then in hospitality, you're kind of expected to people please on all levels. And I think from us approaching our work as creators, we can be a little bit more open and honest at tables and more transparent about things. And instead of just being that immediate apologist, when that apology is necessary, right? But I think you're conditioned to almost be an apologist in almost any scenario of like an issue. But actually, when you have this, like, listen, let's talk. I'm here in this venue, everyone's involved in all aspects of it. So whatever the issue might be, I'm pretty sure I'm involved in some way. So let's open it up and let's talk. What didn't quite work for you, whether it's a wrong recommendation or whatever. And then we always go with an amendment first. So our first port of call is just like, let's make an amendment for you, And I think that that's appreciated by a lot of people, that it's like, listen, we want to, it's typical British to be sitting with something and say it's fine when it's not fine, Yeah. And it's about, and that it comes back to reading a guest, but then there's like levels of reading a guest too, where it's like, man, like I'm that guy in the room who will be like scanning a room, and I'll just say to someone, and I remember as well, like you've spoke about that, having my finger on the pulse and kind of like managing every scenario down to the detail of it, tonality of a menu chat, and picking up on it, because I've had people come through the building as team members and say it's overbearing, but I'm like, well, sorry man, but we've got where we have what's the word I'm looking for, but like a very high standard for first and foremost, but also in terms of feedback, I think we're up there with some of the best. And we have a very high like Google rating as well, and I think that comes a lot down to how we manage scenarios at tables. And for me, being that eyes on in a room and taking an overview and seeing like just kind of getting a read and seeing someone might throw a certain facial expression when they drink a drink, and they kind of, there's like you'd see like you'd say go do a meaningful check back on table 2, because I get an indication.
Is that what you say? That's the language you use. Meaningful check back.
Go do a meaningful check back on table 2. And listen, all checkbacks should be meaningful anyway, right? But I mean, you just want to emphasize the point. So just
but you're right.
It kind of means a little bit more like, hey, go do a meaningful check back on table 2. I get the feeling she might not be vibing with that drink.
Yeah, it's like it's a bit more than all good. It's like, hey, just want to check in. Like,
So it's more targeted and intentional. So like, you got a table that they've been vibing, they love it. First round of drinks went down really well. Second round of drinks comes and you go back and you go, second round, all good. Like, how you getting on? We get down at tables and it's never a drive by like, all good, because you want to get a read.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking after those tables as well, you want to get a full read. But yeah, if somebody's
because I actually think like and I'm just thinking out loud. But if someone checks back on the table and they say all good, and then they're almost walking away as you walk away, you've got no choice but to say because you're kind of shocked by you haven't got like enough seconds to like absorb the question because they just dragged you out of a conversation. So you need to have like a meaningful check back.
Well, one of the key things, I guess, one of the main, let's say if somebody we've narrowed down the amount of sendbacks. When you launch a new menu, you might get some sendbacks because you're like, all right, we need to figure out whether it's either a balancing issue, but we never.
And it can be a failure. Sorry to cut you off, but it can be a failure. It could be a failure of the drinks because you launched a new menu and maybe you haven't quite figured out the balance yet. But it's more likely, and I think more often with us, it's not a failure of the drinks. It's a failure of the menu chat and the guidance.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. So when you figured all of that out and you have got all of your flavor descriptors, your general menu chat down, and how to kind of say if a person kind of sits in this lane with what type of drink they like, these are the options for them, right? Then you'll kind of you'll get this sense of I know how to manage that situation. But it's an interesting one because we know the risk you can take when you do a menu which is not focused on classic cocktails, whatever your kind of more original creations. So every person walking through that door is like a challenge, in a way, but we're more than confident and comfortable in what we do, and I think we've built up this reputation over time where it's like cool, and there's diversity in our city as well now. So if you go on good classics, you'll go to a certain bar. You got seasonal drinks, you go to another bar, and then we're like pretty well known now for our sort of original takes. And it's cultivating an environment. That's one of the key things there. We've cultivated this environment through our language, communication, visuals, and keeping each other accountable, not allowing. And then again, going down to these like meaningful checkbacks, like intentionally reading a room as much as possible. And I think one of the more frequent things that comes up is strength, ABV, right? So
like people asking about it, you mean?
No, just more like it's a bit stronger than I expected,
Yeah.
And I think it's more of a psychological thing. I think because if you're ordering an old fashioned and a Manhattan and classic cocktails that sit in a lane like a Sazerac, right? You kind of already have this understanding that the ABV is high. And even though we put indicators next to any drink on our menu that is strong, so it's like an S symbol in a bracket, and our menu chat is, any cocktail that you see that has this little S indicator next to it, signifies it's more spirit-led. Even the communication around how we say spirit-led. Spirit forward, we remove. We've said spirit forward before, we said remove that. That doesn't translate. You have to kind of say what's universal language, what translates. Spirit-led, I think, works most of the time, but just say stronger. Do you know what I mean?
Strong as fuck.
Yeah, so for the most part, you have to kind of just say to people, like, that little S symbol there. And I think with me, we've kind of moved towards a bit more of a uniform chat anyway. But when the menu first launched, and it was like that S symbol there, it just means the drinks are more spirit-led. So if you like drinking your spirits neat, that was just like it's like. What cuts through everything else? Yeah. What do people understand? And even as far as like if someone says I'm going to give you a run through of the menu, like we've cut that out. It's information on the menu because information is understood by everybody. The English language is not your strong suit. It's not your first language. You understand the word information, right? It's you're in a new city. You look for an information desk if you're a tourist. So rather than say, I'm just going to give you a run through the menu because you might have just said a bunch of words with a certain speed and a certain tonality that goes over someone's head. But if I put a menu in front of you and I say, I'm just going to give you some information on the menu, you might have missed almost every other word I said other than information. But then I'm here, you're there, a menu's in front of you, and I've said the word information. So I'm about to give you some information. So at least you can kind of lock in a little bit and go, right, I'll try and follow this, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I mean, it raises like an interesting industry point, and I wonder how much people really think about it. And my guess is, I don't know. It's hard to say. I was going to say my guess is not that much because of my guest experience in some places, but I think I'm probably treated not the same as your average guest because. Yeah, most bars I go to, like we either know each other through the industry or they at least know that I'm in the industry, and it's like they maybe just go, they maybe just give me the light version. But if you think like you could create like, you know, like drink 1 that's 10 out of 10 for Joe and drink 2 that's 10 out of 10 for Adam. But if you give drink 2 to Joe and drink 1 to Adam and it's both 5 out of 10, then you've just created like 2 amazing drinks, but given them to the wrong people. So therefore you've kind of just created 2 5 out of 10s.
Yeah.
So like the whole process of creating a fucking banging menu is lost if you can't connect them to the right people. So yeah, like that art form should be pushed more, it should be trained more, should be understood more. But it's because it's not as sexy, and it's like, and it's more of a soft skill, and it's more subjective, and it's very difficult to call people on doing it well or doing it good, doing it bad, you know, like you know, if like someone like doesn't connect someone to the right drink, it's like really hard to pull someone aside. And this is why I was saying, like, this is why I think you're pretty good at, is like you pull someone aside, like I think you could have connected them to a better drink, whereas that's kind of like, it's a bit of a ballsy thing to say sometimes, because like you can't prove that. You can't objectively say it. You can tell someone when a drink is unbalanced because you can trust your palate. It's more objective. But to call someone and say like, hey, they got, you know, they got a lacto fermented strawberry drink because you didn't like clock that they were focusing on the word strawberry and not the word lacto fermented, and that's your fault a little bit. Like, you know, not to call anyone out, but just to make them better. I think that's important.
I think we kind of run this fairly intense. I don't know whether you'd say it's an intense environment there at Speaking Code anyway. It's just because we're not afraid to dig deep for each other. Yeah, we're not afraid to hold each other accountable.
All in love.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's an everybody thing. Even for me, like 2 weeks ago, the newest guy, been at the bar for 6 weeks. I'm hosting, right? So I essentially when I'm hosting, I've got free time. I bust tables and I reset tables, and he just goes, Nathan, put the beer and wine cards behind the menus for me when I'm like, cool, got it, you know. So we and to have an environment where they're not afraid to say that to me as well, you know, like we keep each other accountable for sure.
That's good.